Displacements Part 2. So today we're going to work on making a higher resolution displacement. And yesterday's lesson we did just a single large ground piece displacement, and it created a really low poly, very angular, pointy, sharp, ugly bit of terrain. So today we're going to go ahead and take this a step further, and we're going to use multiple displacements stitched together, which allows us to have a higher resolution in our displacements. So first off, we're going to create a brand new map. Okay, so we're gonna do this in a clean map so that it's a nice fresh environment for us to play with. So we're going to click File, and we're going to click New. Okay. In your top view, I want you to go ahead and scroll out a little bit. We want to make sure we're in the center. Generally work from the center. We take our block tool, and for this one I do have a particular size that I want. So I want you to create a block that is 1024 by 1024. So I want it to be nice and square. So go ahead and make it even 1024 and 1024 on both sides. Press enter, create your block. Okay. Keyboard shortcut for you: if you click on an object in your 3D view and you press Control E, it will center on the object. So just for your future reference. So if I click on an object and I press Control E, it will center all my views on that object. So just a little future thing for you there. Alright, so here's this block. Alright. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and convert this guy over to being a displacement. So I'm going to take my texture tool. I'm going to click on just the top. Okay, and this is a really important part of making displacements. We only want to select the top. If you don't, all of these unseen sides will create shadows and really weird visual anomalies in your displacement when you run your map. So we only want to select parts of the displacement that are going to show. So in this case, this is a ground. So we're only selecting that top piece for this displacement creation. Okay. So again, I'm going to take I've got this block here. I'm going to take my texture tool, and I'm going to click on the top, left click, and it selects just the top. All the other sides are deselected. Take my menu, face edit, displacement, and we're going to click create. They say that a power 4 can cause crashes. I haven't really had any issues with it, but if your game continuously crashes, you can drop it to a power of 3. I've had pretty good luck with 4, but you know, your mileage may vary. So if you have problems, if it keeps crashing, try creating a displacement with a power of 3. I'm going to go ahead and do 4, click OK, and there's my displacement. Okay, you'll notice the sides and the bottom went away. It's actually invisible from the other sides. Now there's a button on here, this little button right here. What this does is it turns on and off your displacement. You can actually see it appearing and disappearing in my top view. So if you don't see your displacement, you may have accidentally pressed or turned off this button. We want it in to show our displacement. Okay. Alright, so now what I want you to do is we're going to take our selection tool, and I want you to duplicate this displacement, and I want to create a 5 by 5 grid. So if you remember back to how we copy, I'm going to take my selection tool, this guy here, select my block, then I'm going to come to my two-dimensional view, shift, click, drag, release the mouse, release shift, and I'm going to line these up. Now it's extremely important that your displacements line up, that these lines meet, and especially that the edges, the vertex edges meet. If you don't, we can't do what's called a sew, where we sew or stitch the edges of the vertex together. So if you misalign the vertex edges, your displacements will tear, and you'll have these gaps that go off into the void, and you'll be able to see under the ground. So as we create these, you have to make sure that when you click on these guys, that their little vertex edges here, that they line up exactly right. Okay, they must be perfect. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create a 5x5 grid. You can pause the video here while you do that and then come back. Alright, so I've created a 5x5 grid of all my displacements. I like to group them all together, it just makes it a lot easier for me. So I'm going to take my arrow tool here, and I'm going to fly up in the sky, hold down my control button, and I'm just going to select every single one of them. So I'm holding my control button, and I'm left clicking on all the squares of the 5x5 grid, make sure I've got them all. Then I'm going to click Tools, Group. Okay, so now it's all one big group. I don't have to try to select them all one at a time anymore. So they're all one great big giant group. All right. Now I've got these selected. It's a giant grid of displacement. I'm going to go to my texture tool. I'm going to go to displacement. And then just like before, I'm going to paint geometry. I've got distance. This is how far it raises or lowers the displacement. And usually you don't want to go too crazy with this. It can really kind of get ugly really fast. So usually 5 is fine, but you can kind of play with it. Then the other thing we want to do is this radius right here. Okay, so this is how big of a sphere we're going to mess with. Okay, so I'm going to go with a fairly large one. And then remember the rules. When I press Z and I'm in mouse look or flying mode, my raise and lower doesn't work. So I'm going to get into position, tap on Z, so now I can't move, but my little dome thing comes back. I'm going to left click, and now you'll notice as I'm painting in the geometry now, or the displacement, it's much smoother than it was yesterday. So I'm going to fly around, Z, and I'm trying to just be as organic and just kind of free-flowing as I possibly can. Okay, so I'm going to do pretty much what we did yesterday. I'm just going to make a circle of mountains, and in the center I want to make a little valley or a lake, because we're eventually going to fill it with water. So my right mouse button is going to create my depressions, so you can see it kind of forming there in the two-dimensional views. Okay, there we go. So I've created this really nice little mountainy terrain. All right, so that is the first part of this lesson. So I'm going to end this video right here and let you finish up that. So what I would like you to end this lesson with is this really nice, smooth set of hills with a valley in the middle. Now, I wouldn't use the same size radius all the time. Like maybe go to a really big radius and come around here and use a large radius to pull out some of the edges. Okay, so I'm going to circle around my map here, and I'm going to just use this really big radius, and I'm going to kind of just run it along the edges here, making big structures. Then I'm going to reduce the radius down a little bit, and then I'll take this and I will come in and do some smaller work. So you don't want to use the same size radius for everything. So we're going to use different size shaping tools, and we're going to come in here so that not all of my hills and mountains look exactly the same size. That looks kind of weird. So I'm just kind of painting this, and I'm trying to just, you know, make things look natural and organic. I'm just going to kind of come in here and mess with this a little bit in a few spots. Never letting the tool linger in one spot too long, because it'll really stretch the terrain and it looks kind of weird when you do that. So I'm just going to kind of, you know, add a little, like almost Bob Ross like. I'm just kind of coming through here and I'm just putting in happy little hills and mountains and, you know, little bumps in the terrain and stuff. All right. So there's our end goal here, is we're trying to create this really nice kind of natural looking set of hills. I'm looking from the bottom here. You know, that looks kind of weird right here, this little section right here. So I might kind of smooth that out. Switch to my smooth tool and just kind of blend that away. All right, so that is step one. Finish that up, save your map, and then watch the next video.